What is going on? Run Pure Sports College Football Print Factory Show. I am here with Bruce. I'm here with Bryce. No Big T. I know it's just on the Best Ball Show, and I said this show will start when Big T says, but boss man Big T, he's on the course. He said he has a couple holes left, and he said, man, go. Can you do the show? So what am I going to do? Say no? So I'm doing the show for him. Also, if you were on the Best Ball Show, you understand why my lights are not on. I'm not just an idiot, okay? I know how to use a light switch. You guys will laugh at this. Big T said that the lights only work when you have his phone and you're on the Wi-Fi. So these lights do not work unless Big T is on there. So, Bruce, as a technical guy, don't you think there's a hole in some of those issues there?
I mean, in my office, I don't want my wife touching any of my stuff. So, no, I'm good. I'm good with that.
Yeah. Bryce, it seems like a ridiculous idea. I saw you shaking your head.
Well, I think it's a ridiculous idea to have simply because my desk is in like the main room in our apartment. Like our rooms are basically bedrooms and like our main room and kitchen. So like you see like our setup back there with the TVs and stuff. So my office is freely open to anyone who walks into my house. So it's pretty much the opposite of you guys' setup.
Yeah, this setup is closed, and yeah, that's why I'm in the dark. So I'm not just an idiot. I am the host here, breaking down the college football show with our experts, Bruce and Bryce. We'll be talking about this college football slate. And Bruce, how about this? Before we dive into the Saturday slate, can you give like a Friday quick overview for the people? Yes, we're not doing like a full breakdown, but just give like a quick breakdown so the people understand what's going on.
And you caught me off guard.
I know.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. I mean, it doesn't have to be like 30 seconds. The TDLR, as the kids say.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Completed the playbook for it the other day. It's a really small slate, but it's it's kind of a good one. It's a lot better than last night, that's for sure. Not as many blowouts. You have TCU and Stanford, which should be, I think, the game of the night. Projects to be closer. It's going to be fast tempo and some good offenses there, bad defenses. And then you have OU against Temple. OU should blow them out. So, you got to get those pieces right. It's just a fun slate. And then you have Michigan State with their new coach, Aiden Childs at quarterback, which he's fun. Runs the football. Can throw it decently well against the FAU team that's not going to be very good. In my opinion, and then you have Wisconsin against the MAC, Western Michigan, and that game could end up closer than the spread as well. So just because it's early in the year, so yeah, it's a lot of fun. And yesterday was great. I didn't have any of the good receivers I needed to get a takedown, but yeah, it's a great slate tonight, and maybe even a better one on Saturday.
Yeah, should be fun. Bryce, give your quick breakdown. There are some good games. TCU Stanford did stick out as one of those big games that I'm sure will be the competitive game that we'll be interested in. But what are some of the games you're looking at tonight, and we'll break down?
I mean, there are honestly pieces that you can play from any game here. Michigan State with Childs, a quarterback, I think he's a pretty strong play. They're not like the typical boring Michigan State offense of the past, hopefully. So it's something new to note this year. Carter's one of the better backs on the slate. Florida Atlantic, don't really love them. Temple, don't really want anything to do with them. OU is going to kick the shit out of them. I mean, OU still good plays. Arnold, Sawchuk, and I mean, pretty much receiver roulette there. Wisco, Western Michigan's a little bit more interesting. I think Pauling's one of the better receiver plays on the slate. Malusi's definitely playable, and I don't mind Van Dyke in tournaments here. This is probably my least favorite of the four games. And then TCU Stanford, two plays that kind of stand out to me here are Io Minor seems like a lock to me. I always butcher his name, but I think guy's one of the best receivers in college football in terms of volume and production. And I think he's pretty matchup proof, not like TCU is like something to like be overly concerned about. And you get Cam Cook here if he's healthy. I need to look more into the hamstring this evening, but I think he's a good play at running back if he's like good to go. But hamstring issues are kind of tough, and I don't love messing with unneeded injury risk, especially early in the season when there's a lot of unknowns.
All right, well, that's the breakdown for the Friday night slate. Let's dive into the Saturday night slate, or not Saturday night slate, Saturday day slate, which this will be basically 12 o'clock games, 3:30 games, 12 of them to discuss, so let's dive in. Clemson, UGA is the first one up, and we got a 49 total here. This is definitely one of the lower totals on the slate. There's a lot of low ones. The highest is a 59.5, but this is definitely not one that we absolutely love. It's a 14.5-point spread, and we know Georgia, they could definitely kick the shit out of teams for sure. They always have a great defense. Bruce, I'll go to you to kick it off. Are there any Clemson options with them being underdogs, maybe the pass game, or are you just on the Georgia side and trying to figure out which running back is the correct one?
Yeah, I definitely like Georgia here. They're just too strong of a team. Carson Beck is just, I think if he's not the best quarterback in the nation, he's top two. I just think they're able to move the football however they want. The running back situation is definitely concerning. I haven't heard, I don't know if we'll know until game time if Etienne is out. Just because he had that arrest situation over the summer, so he could be out. And if he is, we should see Branson Robinson and Nate Frazier, I guess. And they're pretty low on the depth chart, so I think those two guys would be in play, just because they don't have much left if Etienne sits. Because Roderick Robinson hurt his toe as well, so he's out for sure. So we could get a 3K guy in Nate Frazier there that's playing meaningful minutes. I don't think Clemson's going to be able to move the football that well on the ground either. So I think Moffa's going to have to get a touchdown and maybe some receptions as well. Yeah, it's kind of rough there on the Clemson side. I think if you really want to attack it, you play a receiver or so, but even then it's tough to pick between like a Tyler Brown or Antonio Williams or even Brenningstool. Brenningstool's cheap. The tight end at 4,400, he's not bad. And then receiver for Georgia, they kind of spread it out a little bit. I do like Dylan Bell. He does a lot. He can do stuff on the ground and through the air as well. And I do like the pickup of Colby Young from Miami as well. I think he's going to be a good receiver for them. The two tight ends, Jurashek and what's the other guy's name? It's escaping me right now. Oscar Delp. He's also, those are also two solid plays. Just because they have Carson Beck throwing them the football, and he makes plays and gets them the football in good places to do that.
For sure. Bryce, I'll go to you next. Obviously, I don't think this is a game you're going to have that much exposure to. Like, it's always just tough to predict Georgia games. They're typically games I feel like we naturally stay away from. And with 12 games on the slate, I know I will be lower on this game. How about you?
We don't have like a Brock Bowers for Georgia this year, like a clear-cut way to like attack the offense, like with the guy who's going to be on the field every play and see like somewhat safe volume. Georgia spreads the ball around so much, as you guys said. In general, they're one of my least favorite teams to attack here. And, they normally don't get in shootouts because their defense is so good. And I normally don't play people against Georgia. So they're more of like a short slate, like really weird situational type of team that I play. Even in GPPs, I don't think I'd want tons of this. I think my only stack here would be like Beck, probably pick up a receiver or two. And then, you can run it back on Clemson with Williams or Brown would probably be my two favorites. Brenningstool is good. I think Brown theoretically has more upside, and I wouldn't be playing anyone in cash in this game regardless. Like even if Etienne sits, I think there are better running back plays on the slate, and it's just going to be kind of a stable of like 3 or 4 guys going at it, and you won't really know which ones to take. Like, I could see a scenario where you don't see a single guy get over like 8 or 9 carries. So, that's just kind of the Georgia offense, and it's a game I do want to be under on.
All right, one game down, 11 to go. Vandy and Virginia Tech is up next. I'm sure our guy Steve Boyton is excited for this one. It's not the home opener for VT, but should be a good game. And I mean, VT's kind of fun this year, Bruce. I think like they've got some players that I think are worth rostering. Drones definitely gonna be fun in fantasy. Tutton had them both last year, definitely solid options. Curious if that passing game is anything that you're going to be interested in, and curious what you're doing on the Vandy side of the ball, Bruce. What do you got here?
Yeah, I think Virginia Tech's going to be really good this year. They always what I look at in week one is returning production on both sides of the football. Just get an idea of what the offense and defense are going to look like. Virginia Tech returns 98% of their offensive line snaps from last year, and for a running football team, ran the ball almost 60% of the time last year. It's looking good for them. Vandy's I think they could be kind of sneaky this year. Vegas likes them to keep it within 2 touchdowns, so I think their side of the ball is interesting as well, but I do think Virginia Tech should be able to run the football here with Drones and Tootin. I love those two guys. I have tons of them in best ball. I expect them to have big seasons. Drones is going to be the most owned quarterback on the slate by far. I just think it's going to be a tough fade for me, just because he does run the football so well, and his touchdown rushing upside is so nice. There's not really, if I look at the quarterbacks, there's not really another one that kind of sticks out that can do the same things here. So I definitely we'll have some exposure to Drones, and Tootin as like a pivot there, just because he's probably going to be lower owned than Drones is, and he has nice upside as well. I don't, you don't have to force it with the receivers. He does have some good receivers in Jennings and Felton and Lane. Jennings would be my preferred one there, just because before he got injured, he looked great. He scored 2 touchdowns in 2 games, 3.8 yards per route run as well. So, he's just a good receiver in my opinion. And if you're going to play one, it's probably him, but you don't have to force it. Vandy side, receivers, man, I don't know what they're going to do, and they have Pavia, and they're gonna run in another guy in there too. They listed him as an or. Who was it? Nate Johnson from Utah. So both of those guys should play, and it's hard to play an or. We saw last night Vasco went off as an or, but I don't have too much interest in these Vandy receivers just because I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback.
All right. If you had, by the way, 12 minutes, if you had the over on a best ball reference on a college football show, you can cash your ticket. I thought that the best ball reference came sooner than I thought, but hey, VT is definitely a good team to get exposure to today. Bryce, I'll go to you. Is this a spot where is VT like cash viable? I mean, they weren't really that much last year, but I think on this slate, there's definitely some potential for these guys to have really nice floors and ceilings that you're going to like them in cash games and tournaments.
I think there's 2 cash locks, and one of them's Drones. Quarterback is probably the weakest that you'll see maybe all season, but definitely in recent history. There's not tons of guys that you really want to take. I think Vandy can keep this game close enough as to where Drones is playing the entire game. He's going to run the ball. I don't see any way to get away from him in cash. I think it's viable to play him in Tootin and just kind of gather all the Virginia Tech rushing points. Thing is, there's a lot of good running back plays today, and we have another lock that I'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, I don't really want anything to do from Vandy. Well, I do think they'll put up points. Taking an or on a quarterback on a 12-game slate is just not something that I do or have the risk tolerance to do. I mean, last night it's a little more viable with like a shorter slate and like less things that you want to get into your lineups. But Vasco is not a guy that I normally play. He doesn't profile as a guy that I play, and if he beats me, he beats me. So if one of these QBs ends up beating me, so be it. But yeah, I like Drones and Tootin. I do agree with Bruce on Jennings as being the best run back, although I would not force it here. Drones can get there on the ground. I mean, he could have 103 on the ground. Like he doesn't need a run back or like a pairing.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Next game up. Sorry, Big T just texted me, so I was distracted by that. Penn State, West Virginia. That's the next game up. 51.5 total. West Virginia, I do think they're going to be a little more interesting than they've been in past years this year. So I think that's definitely something we got to consider. I know we've really liked playing, what's his name? Jaheim White and Donaldson. That's always been a toss-up, Bruce. It's always who's the guy going to be. Maybe have a lean on which guy's going to be the guy this year. Green is definitely an interesting option that we can definitely get some exposure to. And then Penn State, I mean, Singleton's always an option that we like to consider in DFS. I'm curious where you're going with this game because 51.5 total. And again, the highest total is 59.5. The lowest total on this slate is 42.5. So there's a lot of games that are kind of close to each other. This is still kind of one of those games that's in the middle. Is this one that you're going to get a lot of exposure to, Bruce?
So yeah, if you look at the website, in the matchups tab, I put like the rush percentage, the pass percentage for each team, tempo, and all that stuff. Kansas offensive coordinator from last season is making the move over to Penn State, and they ran the ball 61% of the time. And West Virginia last season ran the ball 63% of the time. And both of these teams are very slow paced. So I think it's going to be a lot of stuff on the ground, and very slow. I don't think a lot of people have caught on that this Kansas offensive coordinator moved to Penn State, and they're probably going to keep it on the ground. Like they did with Neal and Hishaw at Kansas. I think Allen and Singleton are going to do some work tomorrow on West Virginia. I think it's a good spot for them. The problem is there's two of them, and you don't know how that rotation is going to look. I think Allen is probably the best all-around back. Singleton is just so fast. He can score from anywhere on the field. So you're kind of taking a shot there, guessing which one is going to go off. Same with West Virginia. You have White and Donaldson, like you talked about, and then you have also Garrett Green, who can also run it into the end zone too. So it's I really want to love these run games, but I think they're more tournament based, just because it's it's tough to figure that out. What Kansas did well as well is hitting teams over the top. After their run is working, Penn State picked up Julian Fleming from Ohio State, 5-star receiver, and I think that's a sneaky pickup for them. He has 6K, but he has a ton of talent. So I will have some interest in him in tournaments. Just so he can play like that Luke Grimm roll over the top and catch one of those deep passes. West Virginia, the passing game, I really don't want any. Maybe some Traylon Ray in tournaments just because he has the home run hitting ability. And Tyler Warren, the tight end for Penn State, 7 touchdowns last year, and that was with the NFL tight end on the roster too. So I have some interest there, but just the run games mostly in this one in tournaments.
All right, run games for Bruce. Bryce, what about you? Are you in on the run game, or are you looking to maybe play some of the pass catchers?
I don't love this game as much as the total would suggest. You have rotating backfields. While Green has tons of running upside for a quarterback, it's a really tough matchup against a Penn State front seven that will put pressure on him. And, I hate taking running quarterbacks against defenses that really put pressure on the quarterback because you get negative rush yards. So that kind of negates some of his rushing floor. I wouldn't say it negates his rushing upside, but it definitely hurts the floor. Drew Allard's not a guy I play pretty much ever. I think this new offense for him, I don't think it'll help. It might help their offense as a whole, but I don't think it helps him like fantasy production wise. If you do want to play him, I think Fleming's a pretty interesting transfer here. I really liked him at Ohio State. He just never saw the field. Guys, absurd amounts of burst. So, if you're trying to hit a big play with like super low pairing, maybe Allard to Fleming. I do prefer their run game. I would take chances personally on Allen. I just think that I normally play him over Singleton, but it's pretty much toss up. It's like, say you were playing 10 Penn State running back teams. Like I'd play Singleton in 4 and Allen in 6 or something like that. It's not like a huge split. And then West Virginia run game, I just think running back is so strong. I don't really want to take shots on either of these two guys a lot. Like they're going to stay in my GPP pool, but not actively looking to get them into my teams. And, if you do want to run Green, you don't have to run him with a receiver. Like he has the rushing upside to get there without one. So just something to note.
All right, let's go to the next game up. Bruce, this is definitely an interesting one to discuss. So it's Kent and Pitt, 54 total. One of the reasons why is Pitt is a 24-point favorite. And because they're 24-point favorites, and we've seen it on a lot of these slates right now, the run game is probably going to be really good, right? We're going to want to just take the running backs and look at them. And there's two pretty cheap options here that I think we have to consider in Reed and Hammond Jr. Is it all just the Pitt ground game, or are there any other intriguing options on Pitt or Kent State?
Yeah, Pitt's probably one of my favorite teams this offseason. Another best ball reference. I actually have a lot of Pitt. I probably drafted the wrong quarterback because it looks like Holstein's going to start. He's a Bama transfer. He was a freshman there last year. He has really good rushing upside as well. Pitt's making the transition to an air raid offense. What Western Carolina ran last night against North Carolina State is going to be the same kind of thing. They were really fast. They threw the ball 55% of the time last year. So it's going to be a lot more air based than what we've seen in the past from Pitt. I really like Desmond Reed. He was a pass catcher, Western Carolina, and I think he can do good things in this game. He's going to start. Should see some Rodney Hammond as well, but Reed looks like the guy. He transferred in from West Carolina with the offensive coordinator, so he's familiar with the offense. So yeah, I think he's going to fly under the radar just a little bit. I see some other sites kind of touting him a little bit, but sometimes those cheaper guys go a little bit lower owned than expected. Kanata Mumpfield, 4,800 is one of the better plays on the slate. Just because they're going to air it out. It's a fun offense. We saw Colombo last night go crazy. In that offense, and I think Mumpfield and even the tight end Bartholomew. I think he's an NFL tight end, 4,200, just way too cheap for him. I think he goes off as well. But even these other Pitt receivers, Reynolds, Williams, they're all cheap. And they're going to start and be on the field a ton. Just like we saw from Western Carolina last night. Not a ton of interest in Kent State. They do have Kai Thomas, who's a Kansas transfer, started at Minnesota at running back. He's a little interesting because I don't know what to expect from Pitt's defense, but I really have a ton of interest in the receivers, at least for Pitt.
Yeah, the Colombo reference. Shout out Kevin Fallick for putting him in the core yesterday. And Bruce, shout out to you for your projections, right? I had some Colombo in tournaments. That definitely got some of those teams at the top. Gave me a fun little sweat. So that's what you get over here at Run Pure Sports. Tons of great content, the projections and everything like that. You also get our guy as Big T, the name Big T. You get his takes. It'll be in the Discord. It'll be on the playbook as well. He'll be here to give you that. He's normally going to be on the shows, but today you got me. So if you want Big T Stakes, go sign up over at Run Pure. All right, Bryce, give me the breakdown of this game. I know Bruce has a lot of Pitt. In best ball, he's got Pitt tomorrow because they're big favorites. Are Pitt cash game plays for you and tournament plays?
Pitt's kind of borderline cash for me. You do want to find some salary savings here in quarterback 2 is awful. Holstein is borderline cash viable for me. I think if you're punting quarterback 2 off, I think he's probably the best punt. There are definitely routes to do that. Like if you want to spend up some at running back, which we can discuss. But he has a good pedigree. He has a really good matchup. I mean, they're going to do pretty much whatever they want against Kent State, I'd assume. And if not, they're still going to score 35 points in a close game. I don't really see any way that they don't here. So, yeah, I mean, this offense as a whole is super cheap. Mumfield and Bartholomew, I think they're cash viable. I do prefer Reed to Hammond. I think that Hammond would be more the guy that you'd want in like a total blowout scenario game, and Reed would be like more like, Bruce mentioned he was such a good pass catcher guy that like you could even play with Holstein here. So I do like this game. Kind of sucks when you get the quarterback wrong for best ball, but maybe Holstein just ends up being awful and they go back to Yarnell. I mean, I do think there's some risk with Holstein involved here, but I think it's pretty hard for him to struggle in this matchup unless like they do end up wanting to get a look at both guys. I think it should be Holstein's. So, if I have a different take tomorrow morning, things obviously change a lot with news. Us three, especially Bruce, are always in the Discord. So you guys always have someone to bounce stuff off of.
Yeah, we'll be scouring the news and everything. Bruce, do you think we'll have a lot of news tomorrow? Like, what do you think typically it's like later in the season or as we get going, but do you think we'll have any news on stuff for tomorrow?
Yeah, it's mostly suspension stuff, that we haven't heard of.
Okay.
The good thing about it is I saw the SEC is going to start releasing injury reports too. So, we should get those 2 hours before kick, which is great. Big Ten already does it. And I think a lot of the other conferences are moving that direction too.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, it's not really an amateur sport anymore. Like
yeah.
There needs to be some level of professionalism. Like these teams are making so much money and, so do the players. If you leave the ability to, I don't know, like fudge injury reports and whatnot, like, I don't know. The NFL's gotten a lot better with it, and I expect college to as well.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's at the point where they've scaled it enough where we understand it's a money sport, right? It's not the whole, it's for the kids and they're just getting their tuition out of it. It's, that's not it anymore.
I mean, we have 100K to first tomorrow. They need to start doing it.
Yeah, actually, I didn't realize it was 100K to first. So that's exciting. That'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully, we can get a Run Pure member to take that down. Next game up, last one in the 12 o'clock window. It's Maryland and UConn, and man, I am excited to not deal with Tua's brother anymore. It's that I've been waiting for this day for a while, Bruce. So hopefully you can talk me into Maryland actually being a fun team to roster these days. They still got Hemby over there. UConn, they are definitely going to be massive dogs here. It is a 20.5 point difference, and this is one of the lower totals on the slate. It's a 45.5 total. So Bruce, break this thing down for me.
Yeah, this thing's going to be slow. Two of the slowest teams in college football, both run the football as well. So I think Maryland pounds them on the ground. Really slows it down. Should see a lot of Hemby, a lot of McDonald, a lot of Nolan Ray for Maryland, and not sure who's starting at quarterback yet for Maryland. Billy Edwards Jr. Played some last year. He's a kind of a rushing quarterback in like the Tebow mold, kind of a bigger guy. And then MJ Morris, a transfer from North Carolina State. I think he's the better passer. But no clarity on that, on who's starting yet. So they might even both play. They do have some good receivers. Caden Prather and Ty Felton are two of those. And, it's just I don't know how good these quarterbacks are going to be. I think if they start Edwards, I wouldn't play any of these receivers at all, just because I've seen him pass last year. UConn, for Maryland, Preston Howard, their tight end as well. He's elite. Going to be one of the next good ones, and he's cheap. I'll probably have him on the playbook at the bottom. Skylar Bell, the transfer from Wisconsin, is a receiver for UConn. If they're trailing, he's probably the one you want to play. But might be a 4-man rotation for UConn at quarterback. They have three oars on their depth chart too. So mostly avoiding this game other than the Maryland running backs.
All right. Mostly an avoid for Bruce. Bryce, how about you?
I'm cutting it besides Hemby. You can't get everything you want on this slate. You got 4 oars. You have really shitty quarterback play on Maryland. Going from as annoying as Tylua was to roster, like he still threw for like 300 yards a game. Like I don't think they're going to be doing that this year. While I do think some of these receivers are talented, I would rather see it first, like before I invest in it. So yeah, I think it's kind of Hemby or bust for me here. If the game beats me, it beats me. But yeah, there are just way better spots on this slate that I'd rather get like extra exposure to.
All right, let's move this thing along. So this is the one game in the 2:00 window, which maybe matters for injury news. It's not an avoidable game at all. 54 total, San Diego State, Oklahoma State, and I think we really got to talk about Ollie Gordon at 9.1K, right? Ollie was the man last year, absolutely dominated. We also have Presley on Oklahoma State, Owens, 2 guys that always were involved. And Bowman was not bad last year. Overall, I think you have to have some interest in the Oklahoma State side of the ball. Question is, Bruce, are we going to pay for Ollie Gordon at 9.1K?
Yeah, the problem is that Vegas, thinks it's going to stay close. South Dakota State, I'm going to call them San Diego State at least once.
I called them San Diego State. So yes, it was South Dakota. But I
was watching. Did you guys watch that San Jose State game last night?
Yeah.
Dude, I thought that guy died on the kickoff. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. Surprisingly, he did not. But yeah, I'm gonna at least call him San Diego State at least once. But yeah, Vegas thinks it's gonna stay close. They have it as a 10-point spread currently. I think they were pretty good last season as well. They have some good players. They always find the good offensive linemen, good defensive linemen. So yeah, I think you have to have some interest in Ollie Gordon. I don't. He's going to be owned for sure. I just if they blow him out, they could definitely treat this as a preseason game. But Vegas thinks it's going to stay close. I have to agree with them as well. And he's the best running back in college football, unless they're playing Texas. So yeah, it's tough to ignore. And then they also have some of the best receivers in football in Presley and Owens. And Stribling's back from injury finally. So, those guys can definitely dominate on that side of the football. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these. South Dakota State loves to run the football as well. They have 2 Johnsons, Amar Johnson and Angel Johnson. Supposedly both of those guys are solid. Angel Johnson kind of has the better numbers, but Amar Johnson looks like he's going to start. So I have a little interest there, especially if it stays close. I think one of those 2 guys could have a big game, and I definitely have interest in the South Dakota State run game.
All right, Bryce, what about you? Obviously, Oklahoma State, they've been a team that we've rostered a bunch in the past. Are you rostering them here and the underdog they're going up against?
In cash, I don't want anything to do with South Dakota State here. In tournaments, I would definitely include those running backs as a run back for Oklahoma State stacks. Now, I do want to talk about Oklahoma State because I think they're going to be the most popular team on the slate here with the pricing and having Ollie Gordon. QB2 is kind of tough. Bowman's not the prettiest click, but he does fit a lot of builds well at 7K. I would personally not play him and Ollie on the same tournament team just because I really do think you're capping your upside there. I really doubt that Ollie catches a touchdown from him, which would probably be the only way that they get there. But yeah, I think you kind of pick one side of the game and go with it. Like whether it's Bowman and like Owens or Presley, or it's Gordon. I think you play at least one side of this game in most of your teams. It's pretty hard for me to see like at least not one player from Oklahoma State being on the winner tomorrow. It's just a really good spot for them. very friendly pricing on everyone other than Gordon. And Gordon just has such like a great raw projection that, that gives him a great chance of making it as well, especially with bad quarterback play. I think if there's ever a slate, like a main slate that you might not see two quarterbacks be on the winner, it could be tomorrow. It's just a really bad quarterback slate, which is like what has me thinking that Bowen's going to be like super high owned here.
All right, next game up. Bruce, we got your Texas Longhorns versus Colorado State, and this is the highest total of the slate, 59.5, but it's 32.5 spread. Obviously, we're going to have some interest in this game because a lot of points will be scored, but it won't be that competitive, obviously. You never know, though. The dogs are barking the past couple weeks so far. What's your thoughts here on your boys from UT?
Yeah, I think this is one of the more intriguing games on the slate. Just because Texas has Michigan next week, it's a classic look-ahead game. Both teams go at a nice pace. Love to throw the football. Colorado State was a 60% passing team last season, and I think they'll do a lot of the same this year. They don't return a lot on defense, so I think Texas should have their way with them here. And but do I think that Colorado State can throw enough to keep it close? It's possible. They have one of the best receiving cores, I think, definitely in their conference. But they have Torrey Horton, who last year had 8 touchdowns, 11 targets per game, and just crazy. It just has crazy upside. If somehow this game stays close, they had this Goffney guy as well, who looked solid, and then they brought in Armani Winfield from Baylor, who's also a solid player, and then they have Donovan Ollie, the Washington State transfer. They have some really good receivers, really good pieces here. If they can keep it close in the first half and make Texas keep their guys in, there's this upside in this game is huge. Big story in the offseason was Texas running back situation. They lost Baxter, but Blue should be fine. If this game blows out, we could see it like last night with Noel, where he came out early. So we could see a lot of Wisner and Gibson, the 2 backups here. Both of those guys were 4 and 5 stars, so they could have big games. And then you have Quinn Ewers. I think if you think the game's going to stay close, you probably play Ewers and a receiver too. The receivers are elite from on both sides here. You have Isaiah Bond. I think if the game stays close, he can have a huge game. I think he's probably a top 10 receiver this season. I like him. Silas Bolden, he's 6,200, so the ownership should be down. But he's had a huge offseason. And DeAndre Moore, not a lot of people are talking about him, but he should start, and he is cheap. 3,200 for a starting receiver on Texas, and he should play that. Who's the receiver for the Rams? Whittington. He should play the Whittington role this year. So he should be in the slot, and could make some big plays there.
All right, Bryce. Obviously, highest total on the slate. You got to have some interest probably in cash games or even tournaments. So, what's your thoughts on UT and CSU?
Yeah, I think the blowout risk here is a little tough to handle compared to some of the other games because, they have a huge game, as Bruce mentioned, next week. You could see the starters pulled a little bit earlier than other places just because of that. Game against Michigan is about as big as it gets for Texas here. Trying to prove their worth against the new super conference. So, yeah, Blue's obviously the nuts. It's kind of tough to get off him, but you could see him get like 80-1. Ewers throws for 4 touchdowns, and he comes out of the game and doesn't play the second half whatsoever. That's a totally realistic outcome. He could even get like crazy unlucky and not score. I think he probably scores here, but yeah, these Texas running backs are kind of hard to get away from between him and I prefer Wisner personally. I think he has he has the best chance at getting the backup points here when they do blow him out, because I do think it's going to be a blowout. Ewers, I mean, it's an ugly quarterback slate. I mean, even a blowout, you could see him get there. I would definitely pair him if you're playing him. I think Bond is by far the highest upside pairing here. I think he'd be super. If I was playing Ewers, it'd be really hard for you to talk me out of playing Bond with him. I mean, we've seen Bond for years now at Alabama, and the guy's just an absolute stud when he gets the ball. And, you know, having an offense and a quarterback that can actually do it as opposed to Jalen Milroe is a massive upgrade for him. He doesn't break the bank, you know, only 6.5K. You know, it's not like he's like 8,000 some or whatever. So I do think that Ewers and him is a very solid tournament pairing. Am I going to go there in cash? Probably not. I think there's better ways to spend your money tomorrow personally. But yeah, I think Blue Profiles is the best like cash game play from Texas. You know, massive running back talent at home against an absolute dog shit team that they should be able to do whatever they want. I mean, his range of outcomes is just super, super wide here. I mean, you could see anywhere from, I don't know, and you can say this about most players, but I think it's especially true tomorrow. I mean, if you told me he got 35, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me he got 8 and they blew him out, I would also I wouldn't like say you're crazy or like he got hurt. So
yeah, we saw with Luther Burden yesterday, right? Like where he got,
yeah, I mean the guy scores an early touchdown and then like they're cruising, you know, Ewers throws for a touchdown, you know, they get a special teams or a defensive touchdown, then the whole offense is screwed.
Correct.
You know, that's the risk with these blowout games. You know, you kind of need it. If it stays close, the guys are absolutely nutted. But if it doesn't, like you're in trouble. So I mean, it does give me some hesitation towards rostering Blue, but he's still a very strong play.
Oh yeah, agree with you on that. Mama Rocks Homestead says almost missed it. You got to rewind, but wanted to say thanks. Y'all are amazing. We love having you. You're a staple to the show. I've seen you in chat a ton over the years, so glad to have you around. Bruce, another thing about this slate that I noticed, just to maybe put you on the spot a little bit, is it a good slate? Like quarterback sucks today for this slate, right? For Saturday, is it a good slate to just embrace like just quarterbacks that aren't going to be owned? That you would say, hey, they sound disgusting to play, but if they're cheap and they help make things work, I think you want to just get a lot of studs in your lineup and like these expensive guys. So I'm going to look to do that. I know Drones feels safe and is great, but I'm not saying I'm not going to play Drones. I'll have some, but the point I'm getting at is I think a spend down at quarterback build is something we want to think a little bit about this slate. That's what I'm gathering from listening to you guys. Would you tend to agree?
Yeah, it's going to be, it's going to be top heavy with this ownership. I think you'll see a lot of Drones, a lot of Bowman, and maybe some Will Howard as well. So yeah, you can definitely get different here with Drones and pay down for like a Holstein or someone cheap down there. I'll try to include some cheaper quarterback plays that are that'd be good for tournaments.
Yeah, that's just what I noticed yesterday a little bit with the slate. Like obviously we're watching the slate, me and Big T live, and we're looking at it, and I was like, well, the cheap running backs were kind of failing, but like the stud receivers were going off. And then it naturally led to those cheap quarterbacks were very valuable because some of these quarterbacks that were in games that were just blowouts, like KJ Jefferson, sure, his score was fine at 24, but that wasn't worth it because you needed some of these stud receivers like Travis Hunter and other options. So, Bryce, what were you going to say? You were cutting in for a second.
No, I was just saying, ownership is going to be like Drones, Bowman and Howard, and then everyone else is like way towards the bottom. So I actually think it might be kind of interesting to like, I don't know, play some of these crazy stacks like Ewers, play the pit stack. Like, I think those are really good GPP routes. And yeah, I mean, even in cash, QB2 is tough. Like after Drones, like, I mean, I would rather not eat like Will Howard and Bowman chalk, with some of these other offenses and, just kind of hope the games break your way. Like, it's not like these guys are like miles ahead of anyone else.
Another idea in not cash games, in tournaments that I would do, if you have our optimizer partner over here, Saber Sim, go in and X out Drones, Howard, and who was the other one you said, Bryce? You said 3 quarterbacks. Bowman. Right?
No, yeah, Drones, Howard, Bowman.
Yeah, so I would X all of them and then just run it and see what happens. I'm not saying upload the CSV, but just see what it does. Like, I don't know what you're going to get from there, but that will help you research and figure out maybe who are the secondary quarterbacks that I could look at. Maybe they're good plays, or maybe you run it and you realize I don't want to play these shitty quarterbacks because the alternatives are so bad, and you want to get different with your receivers or some other route. So that's just something I think is great to use with an optimizer to help you just research the slate a little bit and figure out how can I, be different from the field if I want to, or find maybe a gem that people aren't noticing on the slate. So, all right, let's keep this thing moving along. Miami and Florida, next one up, 54 total, close game. I was talking with someone about this game yesterday, Bruce. I think loser should have to leave Florida. I mean, both these teams, it should be like a retirement match as they would do in the WWE back in the day. So, both these teams have not been what they used to be. I'm curious what your take is here on this game. Is it one that we want to like in DFS with a 54.5 total that could be pretty competitive?
Yeah, this is a tough game. It's a rivalry game, so it could end up being a close one. Maybe a lot of defense played here. Not entirely sure. I've looked at it a few times, and both sides return a lot, and tempo is not crazy fast. Offenses are 50-50 run pass. It's a rough one. I think Miami season depends on Cam Ward. If he's a good if he's a good quarterback, like he was at the lower levels, I think they could have a good season. They have the good receivers in Restrepo and George, and Samuel Brown, the transfer from Houston. If he's making plays, I think they can win this one. I do like the Florida receivers, and Graham Mertz, man, if you look at his season last year, I think he had 2 interceptions or something crazy. And I think he played most of the games if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think it's crazy. And Miami's defense has been just up and down. They lost a lot in the secondary. So I don't hate it. 7,500 in tournaments for sure. Nobody's going to play him. Last season he had 20 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And I don't think a lot of people could tell you that. They just hear Graham Mertz and think he sucks, because he was pretty terrible at Wisconsin. But he kind of had a sneaky good season, and he's got good receivers. He got Eugene Wilson, who's an NFL guy. They brought in Badger from Arizona State, who's also a good receiving option. And then they brought in DK from Wisconsin. Those 3 guys are going to start, and they're all, top level receivers. So yeah, it all depends on the quarterback play for me tomorrow. If Mertz is slinging it, you may want to pair him with a receiver or 2. I think that's a very contrarian play. Montreal Johnson's going to probably not be 100%, so I don't want any of him. Damian Martinez, transfers in from Oregon State for Miami. He's a good running back. He may end up sharing with Fletcher though. So it's kind of wait and see for me on that one. He is elite though, so he's going to be lower owned as well. So yeah, it all depends on these quarterbacks. If I'm going to play Mertz, I'm going to play a receiver or 2. If I'm going to play Ward, I'm probably going to play a receiver or 2. It could end up being a good game and full of offense. I just don't want to take that chance in cash for sure.
All right, let's load up on the passing attack according to Bruce. Bryce, what about you? Is this a game that you have any interest in?
Tournaments, yeah, for sure. I actually really like the Mertz call. He's not going to be played, and quarterback's terrible. He has a super obvious pairing, and yeah, Eugene Wilson's just an absolute beast. Not a whole lot else needs to be said about him. He is going to be played somewhat at 7.1, but I think that's a super good pairing. And then Cam Ward's a little hard to stomach at 9K, but I do like Restrepo here a good amount at 6.7. They're just really good volume receivers here in a game that might go overlooked, just because it's like, I didn't really expect to see a 54 total on this personally. I kind of thought it'd be lower, but also like there's no totals in like the mid to high 60s like we normally have on a slate. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good tournament spot here.
All right, good tournament spot for Bryce, and it could be a fun one for sure. These games can go one way or the other. They either shoot like way under or way over. It feels like these competitive ones. It can be a good time. So I'll definitely be looking at it. Some NFL talent, like Bruce said, got to be a good game. Next one up. This is Akron, and I don't know if I should call them the Ohio State University anymore after what they've been doing lately. I mean, you got to beat Michigan to get that name back, in my opinion. They've been embarrassing over the past, couple of years. But 57.5 total, and they're 50.5 point favorites. I know I'm not saying Big T's betting this game, but I know Big T and we were talking yesterday, and we were live betting teams that were plus like 50.5 or 55.5. So I don't know. We might slide in on this one because we said it's gone well to start the season. Just bet the 50.5 totals. Bruce, do you like that strategy? Bet the 50.5 totals, and is there anyone in DFS that you're looking to play here on Ohio State or Akron?
Man, it's a lot of points. And Akron doesn't return anybody on offense. When I was filling in the projections, I was like, man, who are these guys? I have no idea. And I watched a lot of.
When they bet up 40, it's like they don't want to embarrass them completely, right? So they just kind of keep the foot off the gas a bit, and I don't know. It's made money so far, so I think we're gonna close. We're gonna keep the weekend going with just betting 50.5 totals.
I mean, it's the battle of Ohio, Akron versus Ohio State. So, I mean, that's tough. And Ohio State just has Western Michigan next week, so it's not like they have anything to prepare for or anything to sit guys for. So, I don't know. They could keep the pedal to the metal there and score some points, but we'll see. They do bring in Chip Kelly as their offensive coordinator, so. I do expect them to run the ball more this year than they have in the past, especially with Will Howard out there. All I can remember about Will Howard is his terrible interception in overtime against Texas last year when he's falling down and just throwing it up in the air. And oh, man, that's one of the funnier interceptions you'll see. But, I think he's going to run the football a little bit more this season, and he is fast. So that's why you kind of see that ownership up there with him. And they do have Judkins. They bring him in from Ole Miss. He's top 2 running back in the country. So the problem is they have Travion Henderson there too. As long as he's not getting injured, we should see some kind of a share there between those two. And both of those guys are elite. And then their receivers, they just reload. They bring in Jeremiah Smith, who's a 5-star receiver. Maybe the best receiver that's come out of high school in the last couple of years. So, it'd be interesting to see what he looks like. I'll be tuning in to watch that. I have a lot of him in best ball as well. And then Egbuka and Tate. They have a new tight end in G. Scott. I don't know, if he's going to be a receiver or not. He's looked okay last year when he played. And I don't want any of Akron. I think Alex Adams is their best receiver. He had 5 targets per game last year, but their quarterback situation is rough. They brought in Ben Finley from Cal, who's just meh. So, don't want any of that.
All right, and before we get to Bryce, Chris, I said it wrong. We were betting the spread. So like Lindenwood, we had like the over 50.5. We had the over on whoever Utah was playing, whoever it was. I forget what team, but we didn't have the over. We had the spread. So any team that was plus 50 points, we were riding, and it worked out pretty good. So Bryce, I'll head on over to you. What do you want to do with this game, Akron and Ohio State?
No Akron. I just cut them. I think they're one of the easier cuts on the slate. Ohio State wise, I mean, Will Howard is probably the second best quarterback play on the slate, in my opinion. Probably put Ewers 3 if you're going overall points, but yeah, I think Howard's a pretty strong play here. I mean, he has NFL talent all across the board. Can run the ball a bit. They can do whatever they want against Akron. Obviously, the risk here is a blowout, but I would lean towards him playing a little bit more than Ewers with Michigan coming up next week. So that's kind of, and he's cheaper. That's kind of why he gets the nod over Ewers for me. It's a little tough playing these position guys just because they're like super expensive compared to some of these other position players that we've talked about. Like Judkins and Henderson are obviously like, you can obviously play them in tournaments. I think in 90% of the times that I'm spending up here, I'm just going to get to Ollie. I think running back's kind of too strong to not do that. It makes me go to the Ohio State receivers. Igbuka is obviously a good option. I kind of think it's Howard naked or with Igbuka. The rest of it's just so unknown for me. I mean, you can take shots on some of the guys Bruce mentioned in tournaments, but cash wise, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, and no Akron even in tournaments for me tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that does make sense. I just probably X off Akron. Let's go to another Ohio. It's Miami, Ohio, and Northwestern. And I noticed as I was scrolling through the teams, Blaine Gabbert, is that his brother or son? Well, what is it, Bruce? Brother or son? Which one are we?
It's his brother. It's his brother. Yeah.
I just didn't know because there's a large enough gap where I don't know. Blaine Gabbert maybe could have a son. You never know if never know if he was getting the workbench at 16. Anyways, got Blaine Gabbert's brother on the slate and saw some other options that we know, Cam Porter. There's definitely guys that we know of. The spread on this game is 2.5, but it's the lowest total on the board at 42.5. That does not always mean that we don't play guys in that game, but typically it's a cross off. It's not Navy or Army on the slate, but what's your overall thoughts on this one, Bruce?
Yeah, this game's going to be really slow. They do have our guy, Northwestern has our guy, Mike Wright at quarterback. One thing about him is he can't pass at all, but he can run the football. He probably have some kind of interest. He's priced up at 7,600. So, it's a little bit tough to stomach. They do have Cam Porter back as well. And he's cheap. So, I have some interest there as Northwestern will try to run the football on you. So he's interesting for me. Miami of Ohio is like the hardest team to watch. They just, they try to run as slow as possible. They wait till about 1 second on the play clock. It's very frustrating to watch, especially come MAC time when you're trying to relax on your Thursday nights or whatever, and that that's on. But I think it's Porter, maybe Wright in tournaments, and not much else for me.
All right, Bryce. 42.5 total. Is this a cross off for you?
Cut it.
Right, let's cut it. On the slate. Go to the next game, Ohio and Syracuse. Another game you could maybe cut. 46.5 total. That's the third lowest on the slate. 17.5 point spread. Obviously, Bruce, we're going to consider some options here. We're not going to completely cross off every single game, but in cash games, yes, probably tournaments. I don't know. Mr. McCord is over there, which I hated him as a quarterback, so I don't have that much interest in him. Syracuse has Allen, who he was definitely a guy that showed some ceiling last season that we have to consider, I think, at his price tag. So are there any cheap price tags that you have interest in here, Bruce?
Yeah, so I think Bryce is probably going to echo this, but there's two probably cash locks in this game in LaQuint Allen, like you mentioned, and Oronde
price on the slate.
Oronde Gadsden at 3,500. So yeah, he's priced like $3,000 too cheap in my opinion. So those two guys, just cash locks for sure in my opinion. McCord is he's tough to play at that price, especially with Allen. I think Allen's gonna run all over this Ohio defense. They don't really bring back anybody. Bring back 29% of their defensive line snaps, and I like this Syracuse offensive line. They returned 78% of their offensive snaps on the offensive line. It's at home in the dome, so yeah, I think Syracuse just dominates this game. Allen gets a touchdown or two, and Gadsden also. You can take a shot on these Syracuse receivers, but man, it's tough figuring it out after Gadsden. I just think he dominates targets there.
All right, Bryce. I mean, it sounds like a game you're gonna like, obviously, in cash games, even though it's a low total. Hey, sometimes guys are mispriced. That's how college football can be, and sometimes they're so mispriced that they're super high owned. Like Curtis was a great example yesterday. I mean, he was what was he like 65% in the main, and that can pay off as a fade like it did yesterday, or it could just be a plug and play. So, what's your overall thoughts here on this one?
Overall thoughts here is that that was a Division II running back. These are massive home favorites that will dominate. LaQuint Allen should be 8.1K, and Gadsden should be like 7.5K. It's two of the most ridiculous prices on the slate. It's a complete oversight. Even in tournaments, I would make a rule where I'm playing at least one of them. To be honest, I don't see a world in where both fail completely at their price tomorrow. Other than them, I think you get leverage by playing at least one in each team and just get over the field on them. I wouldn't fade them personally. I don't see any great direct leverage plays like on Syracuse to them. It's simply that bad of a misprice.
All right, I like it. And hey, sometimes listen, there's other ways to get unique, right? You don't like I talked about with the cheap quarterbacks. Like, look at some of the teams that win. We looked at Big T. Big T had a really good team yesterday, and there was like a team that was a 2v2 off it that chipped, and you know what it did? It just didn't play Burden and played like Travis Hunter and made a couple pivots. So there's ways to build and be different and eat some good plays. So sometimes you got to eat the good plays for sure. And there's different types of chalk that's good chalk and bad chalk. We talk about it in baseball a lot. Like Kevin Gausman's typically bad chalk when he's chalk, right? There's certain guys that are just like that. So seems like it's just not only a chalk, but it's a mispriced chalk play, right, Bryce?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I hope it lowers their ownership with Division II guy blowing up yesterday, just because, these guys, like on the slate, he would rate out as what, like a C level play compared to this. Like these guys are like A++ compared to him. I don't really see a comparison other than him being high owned and cheap. It's just it doesn't like mess the slate up. It honestly makes it a little more interesting for me because like I think you'll see people try and not play them. Like probably have around 70% of each and force them in. I don't see a world where Allen doesn't get 20 or Gadsden doesn't get like 15.
All right, well,
at the very minimum.
Syracuse it is. Let's get to the last game.
There's some news from the Pittsburgh game. We talked about it earlier between Reed and Hammond at running back. Hammond's actually been declared ineligible for the 2024 season. So we could see that. Yeah, we could see that Reed ownership skyrocket a little bit.
You should probably play Reed becomes one of the absolute best plays on the slate now.
Yeah. Yep. That's definitely big news. So thank you for breaking that. I wish I had like a breaking news bell I could have played for you, Bruce. But yeah. Let's get this last one in though, because Big T's back. I think I hear him rummaging through the Taco Bell order that I put in. So I don't want him to eat my food, and I want him to get in here and get the winners up for you guys. So one last game to discuss. Bruce, it's UTEP and it's Nebraska. Our AP and Snyder are definitely absolutely excited for this one. Big Corn in the building. And I mean, we make fun of those guys for Nebraska, but it's a Nebraska team. They got Pat Mahomes Jr., Bruce. Are we believing Nebraska hype, and are we playing them in DFS?
Yeah, I think they're interesting for sure. I think they keep the ball on the ground here, just like they did last year. Ran the ball 62% of the time. They have a good run game. UTEP is going to be a bad team. They got a new coaching staff in there from Austin P. And I think this first year is going to be really bad. I think the total or the spread there is much too small. I think Nebraska just rolls them here in this one on the ground. The tough part is that Nebraska has 4 running backs listed on their depth chart. So that's kind of frustrating. And, I can see all 4 playing here. I do think Ramir Johnson is probably the most talented one. He's kind of coming back from injury, played 3 games last year. Same with Gabe Irvin and Emmett Johnson. And they also got Dante Dowdell from Oregon. So it's tough to play any of those guys. I do think they dominate on the ground, but yeah, that's extremely rough. They also brought in some good receivers as well. If they're able to run the ball effectively, they can hit them over the top with Jamal Banks, the transfer from Wake. He's expensive, so the ownership's going to be low on him, which is nice, great for tournaments. Isaiah Nair comes over from Texas. I thought he was going to do big things, so he's interesting. And then Thomas Fadone II is their tight end, and I think they're going to throw to him a lot this year. He's going to be a big play guy. So he's interesting. I really don't want anything to do with UTEP. They just probably have a down year.
All right, Bryce, finalize the slate for us. What do you got here in the last game?
Not my favorite game, to be honest. I do think you can play some Nebraska stacks, and I'd probably stack them up. QB and Banks would be my favorite here. He's kind of too expensive for this slate as to where you get priced out of him, but with the cheap guys, it could be a little different here. So yeah, I want no UTEP.
All right, let's want to get the plays of the day, or we want to save them, Bruce? What do we want to do? How do we want to do this for the show?
How about we put them on the playbook or on the course sheet later on? That sounds good to me.
I like that.
I definitely don't have mine ready.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't want to put the pressure on it. It'll be on the playbook. That's why I had to go sign up at Run Pure Sports. We can't give everything away, but it's been a good show. Bryce, any final thoughts for the people here?
Not really. Just week one, normal mispricing stuff. Take advantage of it.
All right. Take advantage of it. I'm with you. I'm definitely going to play some of the good plays, mix and match, find a way to get some low on plays. I was sifting through my teams yesterday, and I even said to Tony, I was like, I don't know how I have a 0.3% owned running back, but he's got 6 DK points, so we're going strong. You can find plays that aren't going to be owned on this slate. Don't worry. So definitely ways to do it. And guys like K Fallick will find it for you, like Mr. Colombo. And if you use Bruce's projections, they'll mix them in there as well, which I used yesterday, and it didn't do too bad. I lost a little bit of money, but that's okay. I felt good about the teams that I put together, and I think I'll have a good night tonight and tomorrow. We'll have the core plays up for tomorrow. We'll have the playbook, so be sure to check all of that out. So for me, Mango and Bruce, Third and Schlong, and the Snyder Soldiers. See you guys later.